First, over these years, what I've realized is in the Indian startup ecosystem, there's a Nandan Nilekani fanboys club that exists, and there are too many startup founders who are members of that. Are you one of them? I ask you this because my next question has got something to do with it.
Great to be here, but not so great to be put on the spot like that. No. I think Nandan has been an engineer who has shown the way of getting to the hard places and actually solving things. A lot of stuff that we benefit today from were engineered by him, but I'll wait for your question.
Well, I wouldn't have asked this to Vivek had he been here. For the audience here, his co-founder Vivek has been associated with Aadhaar. But Pratyush, the reason why I asked you this was Nandan over these years has been talking about that India doesn't really need an LLM of its own. What we should be perhaps looking at is being able to build APIs or see how the existing models can be sort of ramped up, and a faster path to monetization is something that startups should be looking at in India. You've taken a diametrically opposite view on this. What the bet that you've taken, what makes you think that you're going to win, and what is the reason that you think that India needs its own LLM?
So one quick background. So before this, I was teaching at IIT Madras, and at IIT Madras we created a body called AI for Bharat, which incidentally was funded by Nandan Nilekani, right?
I saw Rohini Philanthropy being a part of it, though.
So I think they have been big sponsors of AI. But to your point, right, I think there are two things here. One is, what are the engines of value creation today that we should all be investing in as companies, as organizations, as country? And what is it that we should be investing in for the medium term in terms of research and development capabilities, right? I think both can coexist, right? For value creation, you need to be super fast and build on top of all the great stuff that is coming out very, very fast. But at the same time, we must be aware that though we are behind on this race, we need to have a game where we are playing at the foundational layers, simply because this is such a critical technology. It is one of those technologies, maybe you can count quantum, maybe you can count space, nuclear, I think robotics, and perhaps AI, right? These are so critical that they will drive so much economic value that we need to have the muscle trained in some quarters of how to do this, right? So in my mind, I think the vast majority of our economic engine should be thinking about building on top of AI, creating value, value-positive experiences for citizens and consumers, but we need to have the ability to train these models as well.
Got it. Also, Pratyush, given that you're looking at 10 Indian languages to sort of deliver AI, in India, every regional languages change, 30, 40 kilometers. The Tamil that probably is spoken in Chennai is not the same as one that's spoken in Bangalore. The Madurai Tamil is very different. The nuances of Indian languages with, the syntax or the way things are pronounced, especially when it comes to having a speech-to-text prompt, right? How difficult is to train an AI to understand Indian languages? Because English is pretty standardized, and it's not all that very different if you're even looking at text to text or text to speech. What have been the challenges really to be able to sort of take over 10 languages, understand the nuances, or is the model good enough to understand these nuances? Are we still a long way to go when it comes to the system being very intelligent to understand the language in its entirety?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the broader framing of that question is that you need to build these AI systems to work for people, right? And there are various barriers that inhibit that. And one of them is language. There are others as well. One of them is language. And I think that occurs from, not enough digital data being there in our languages. The whole of large language models is on the back of 2 decades of the internet, where we played a role, but more as a consuming economy and more or less towing the line of what existed. I think a lot more has happened in terms of Indian content over the last decade, which is interesting. So by the way, that's also a point about the first question that you asked, right? Which is, these are fast-moving cycles. And if you invested in internet economy in 2000s, like the Chinese did by mandates on what kinds of companies can work, they can go build the next generation of companies, right? But coming back to your question about Indian language, I think it's all about access to high-quality data. And that data is not available at the scale that is available in English, right? Secondly, we are a ridiculously rich country in terms of culture, right? Which other country has languages varying at this rate, right? So being able to bring that in terms of representation and then being able to build use cases on top of that is what is required, right? If you are talking about offline about Tamil spoken in Madurai versus Tamil spoken in Bangalore. Now, do we have use cases which touch those people using these models in those languages very, very effectively? And I think the answer is yes. So rather than looking at it like, hey, we don't have the resources in terms of data, the question is, do you have value positive use cases which can trigger the generation of this data? I'll give you a quick example. Last month, SBI Life, which is one of the largest insurance companies, had to reach out to about 4.5 crore people, right? That's about a certain percentage of all people who own smartphones or phones of any type. And they had to do it in 10 days because a certain insurance scheme was sort of like required a renewal and they had to call out to them. And we actually, we're using products at Sarvam with completely our own models, were able to scale out, and actually 4.5 crore people in India across states got those calls and then decided to actually buy a certain insurance scheme, had questions that they asked. Tens of lakhs of brochures were delivered to people over WhatsApp and so on. And it turned out that SBI Life ended up creating 200 crores of additional collection basis their baseline, right? If you have economic cycles like this that kick off, the scale of India is our wedge, right? We can then create the data and then make it actually close that gap out. That's what we are trying to do.
Pratyush, the adoption of ChatGPT or other generative AI tools that are available, probably the extent of use of these apps, etc., gives them access to data. When people are using it, you know how people want to ask questions and accordingly train the AI model. But how do you make Indian people use something that is built for them in languages? Are there challenges in terms of adoption of an Indian LLM being there and probably an app that comes out? Do you think that people will be open to using it, or how do you nudge people to use it? The amount of publicity or the might that is required to disseminate the information is so much. I mean, I can understand a big tech having all the might to tell the world that it's easier for them to reach out. But for a startup like you, to get the data, to get people to adopt that, is that a challenge?
That's a very good question. So I think the use case a flywheel requires adoption at scale. And the digital economy has shown again and again that the first mover gets that advantage to go much faster, whether it was the operating system era, whether it was the search era with the browsers and so on, right? The social networking era, now, of course, the LLM era. I think that's an important challenge, but I don't think consumers should make a false choice between what is high quality and what is Indian, right? They should only adopt things which is the highest quality, right? I don't think businesses can be built sustainably with that imperative. And I think what this really means is we should innovate on top of our models, other models, use cases which are meant for citizens, right? In fact, various companies are doing it. So Keshav is here. They are building a company called Equal that's trying to really scale that out. I think these things would be built. And the fact that we are here in India, we understand our users better. Our focus should be on closing that gap to actually creating value positive experiences. And it is just not the language part, by the way, right? Let us take education, which we really care about. How do you prepare for JEE, right? How do you prepare for a a NEET exam or a banking exam, how do you do it much better with AI? Or for example, take something like healthcare. We were talking in the previous panel about healthcare. We might have sensibilities around Ayurveda and certain home remedies, which are different, right? So language is one, value system and the knowledge systems is another. And of course, the context of the world you are in. What is professional advice for an Indian is different from something else, or what is tax advice for Indian is different. So I think you need to work on the foundational layer, catch up where we are behind in terms of science, but then really innovate on the product layer and build value for the Indian customer.
Pratyush, can we catch up is the question, right?
We must, right? And frankly, what's worthwhile if you don't even try, right? I think it's so important that we should catch up, right? And we are the fourth largest country in terms of economy, and we should definitely have these bets, right? And that's one thing that I worry a lot about. Let's take some company like Grok, for example, Elon Musk's company. They have over 100,000 GPUs of a particular kind. Right now, Sarvam is tying together 4,000 GPUs with certain support from the government. We are very behind, and these are small efforts. For a large country with the economic might that we have, we should be more ambitious in what we do in R&D, right? R&D is a dart out there. Sometimes it might fail, but we must go much faster. In fact, all of you represent multiple companies. What fraction of our companies are we putting in terms of profit back into R&D, right? That number is abysmal. Right? As a country, we do not have this culture of asking, am I preparing for the next 25 years like a CCP does regularly? They plan for the 25 years and go and work at it as clockwork.
So, Pratyush, we're seeing at the global level that there are layoffs happening at big tech. And with the AI coming into the picture, the pace of that just got faster. So you're building an AI product. Do you think that your AI will be intelligent enough that you will require the same number of people that you're currently engaging with in the coming years?
Okay, that's close. In fact, we do joke about that in the company as well. No, by the way, this is very real. The AI models are getting so powerful so quickly that work across the spectrum, whether it is knowledge work, whether it is certain other kinds of, let's say, more business process-oriented work, they are getting automated very fast. And I do not see enough recognition of this in various quarters, right? And it's just the start. I think there's a long way to go. This whole technology is 5 years old. What's going to happen at the turn of the decade? I think it's pretty stark.
So is that a yes or a no?
That's a yes.
Okay. And so you also spoke about your time at IIT Madras. You've seen research at IBM, Microsoft, and then you co-founded AI for Bharat, just like you said. Do you see that? So India has been a healthy playground for innovation and ideas, but not a lot of startups, not all of startups have been able to turn into viable, scalable business. What is that the one thing that we're lacking in this entire ecosystem, where research has been equally great for incubating ideas, but they've not been enough for building them into multi-billion-dollar businesses?
No, there are two aspects, right? I think as a startup economy, we are starting to mature, right? I think the number of bets that are being made, which are world-class, the founders who are world-class, I think that number is starting to take off. And I think people do respect what we are doing in the startup ecosystem. I think deep tech startup is another game, right? And that comes from the ability to get together researchers with people who can think business. And as a country, we have not combined these two very well, which is, by the way, very obvious in countries like the US, right? The universities, usually professors, the professors and the students often tend to work on startups. I think it goes back to the point about how much do we value innovation as a country. My own experience is that Indian organizations are very value conscious, and that can become a little bit of a double-edged sword, and you don't adopt innovation, and hence the playground for innovative work is not as much there. A founder would rather fly to the US and start a company there than hustle about here, right? I think that's a change. That's the thing we need to work on. I am hopeful that with greater push for whatever is happening geopolitically, whatever is happening in defense, we recognize the structural need for more innovation, right? And then it creates the, let's say, researchers, faculty members, people even outside India to come back and build here.
So who do you think would be the forerunner in this entire cycle of fixing the system? Means, would it be the government? Would it be the organizations, the institutes, or who would be the?
I think it's a combination of all of them. I think the government has to play a critical role, and I think I'm seeing signs of that. But a lot more needs to be done. But also enterprise, right? So the Indian enterprise has seen various ups and downs. But now looking at the next couple of decades as being technology-driven and investing in that, I think will be an important signal. We have the capital. Access to capital is not a problem. Access to talent is not a problem. I think structurally coming together as government and businesses and putting this together would be useful.
Hopefully that happens. But Pratyush, I want to get your candid thoughts on something that has been bothering me for a while. Today, Indian startups use the word AI very loosely. You know, it's almost like a marketing pitch. Does that muddy waters for people who are actually doing the real required work in AI? Is it like a barrier where, you know, your niche is taken away by people who are not really doing anything related to AI, which probably is just some kind of automation, but the real guys who are working on real AI bit are being left out, or the differentiation that is required as an AI company sort of is getting diluted because everyone is using AI as a marketing pitch?
I wouldn't say so. I think people should liberally use AI wherever it helps them. In fact, I was at a...
Why did it say AI?
Yes. I was at the office of the Chief Digital Officer of a very large group in India. And I was hearing there that they are finding it hard to make decisions on technology to buy because they don't understand what is good, what's not. I think this is natural. The technology is moving so fast that our understanding of it, clarity of value propositions, they have not yet been built out. But I think that's par for the course.
Well, I think we have time for one last question. Pratyush, in the entire ecosystem, there's this talk of the cost of AI coming to zero at some time, right? And today, any of these large enterprises that are here with their AI apps or AI offerings are all built on existing enterprise clients, like Copilot is banking on Microsoft's enterprise plans, and Grok has Twitter users out there to bring that might. Do you think that how is an enterprise adoption the real test of whether the AI is successful or not? And I want to know, what is the monetization path for Sarvam? Because there's been some bit of confusion around whether you're going to open source the model or not, and some clarity around that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think VCs would like to rephrase the question as, what is your moat, right? What are you building? And my co-founder would funnily say, there is no moat. The only moat is if you dig one. That's the only moat you can create. No, but more seriously, I think, frankly, though a couple of large companies are making money in AI globally, a large number of other companies, including the famous ones that you would know, are actually burning cash right now. So what is the economic engine around AI, given the amount of investment that has been done, is an ongoing open thesis, right? Our own goal is very clear. Hill climb on the understanding of the science of it. And secondly, enable the sovereign Indian play around AI, which is a strategic importance, make that happen. And thirdly, help Indian entrepreneurs who are actually building products with the components as options to all the global offerings.
Lovely. And thank you so much for making it today. All the best. And ladies and gentlemen, a great round of applause. And we hope Sarvam makes India proud. Thank you. And stay tuned for more interesting panels that are coming up. Have a good day.